What is this contingent? Something which is uncertain. Now these principles of management, they are contingent to the situation. So based on the situation, we have to decide about the principles of management. So whatever is the business activity, so you have to first set the standard first. So that is the technique of F.W. Taylor. The head of the institution, he takes all the decisions by himself, so that we call it as centralization of power. Hello everyone, I am Purnima, faculty in the Department of Commerce and Management, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. I welcome you all to this session. In this revision session, I will be having a revision of Unit 2 or Chapter 2 of the second PUC syllabus. Now, what does Chapter 2 have? So, in the Chapter 2, we have the concept, that is the nature and principles of management. So in the first chapter, we studied what is management, what are the features of management, importance, objectives of management. We also studied the functions of management and coordination. And in this chapter, we will be just studying about what is the nature of the principles of management. Then, what is the significance of principles of management? Why the principles of management are important. Then, we will also be studying about Taylor's scientific management, then principles of scientific management, techniques of scientific management. So F.W. Taylor, he is called as the father of scientific management. What are his principles and what are the various techniques he has introduced for scientific management? We will be studying. Then we will also be studying about Fayol's principles of management, and lastly we have a comparison between Taylor and Fayol. So in this session we will be discussing all these concepts in detail. So let us see what do we mean by principles of management. So in the previous session we have studied what is management. Management is nothing but the art of getting things done through other people, or you are working through others. So how do you make others work for you? That is management. Now in this we will be studying about what are the principles of management. So a managerial principle is a broad and general guideline for decision making and behavior. So what is principles of management? It is a general guideline for decision making and behavior. So what is the kind of decision you have to take and what is the kind of behavior you expect from the employees? So all these, in order to just decide what is the decision you are taking and what is the behavior you need, we need to have these principles of management. So they are the basic truths or guidelines for behavior. So they are giving us guidelines how each and every employee should behave in the organization and what is expected from him and what are the decisions to be taken. So what are the values? Values are general rules for behavior of individuals in society formed through common practice. Now, what do we mean by values? So, whenever we think of principles, we also associate with values. Now, what is this values? Values are general rules for behavior. What are those behavior which are accepted by the society? What are those behaviors which are not accepted by the society? So, those which are accepted by the society and those which are in common practice, all them we call them as values. Then, the next one, let us see what is the nature of the principles of management. What are the important features of principles of management? So most of the students will get confused between the features of management and features of principles of management. Please make a note here. The features of management and the features of principles of management, they are but similar, but they vary with certain differences. So please kindly make a note of it. So the nature and principles of management is, first one is universal applicability. Now, what is this universal applicability? So, these principles of management, whatever we are following or whatever the guidelines which are laid down, so they all are apply all over the world. So whether it is in India, whether it is in US, or whether it is in London, New York, anywhere, whatever the place it is, so these rules will apply. So whatever the principles or whatever the guidelines which are laid down by the management thinkers, they have universal applicability. So there is no exception for the principles of management. Second one is they are the general guidelines. So they are the general guidelines. So why do we call them as general guidelines? See, all these principles of management, they have been formulated based on the experience of managers. So they will actually know what they would have confronted the situation, and based on the situations, how they have handled the situations, they have framed the guidelines. So that is why we call them as the general guidelines. So based on these guidelines, we will be able to take the appropriate decisions. Then they are formed by practice and experimentation. So whatever the practice, so whatever the rule they have practiced and whatever they have experimented, so that will be formed as a principle of management. So that is why all these principles are time-tested principles. So they would have been practiced by the managers, they would have been experimented upon, and then it would have been laid down as a principle of management. So that is why we say that they are formed by practice and experimentation. Then next one is mainly behavioral. Since management deals with group activity, it deals with working with the number of people, so all the principles are mainly behavioral. So we all know that human behavior keeps on changing, and in order to see that there is a confirmation of behavior from the people, we expect certain sort of behavior from the employees. So all these principles are mainly behavioral principles. Then the next one is cause and effect relationship. All the principles of management, whatever are there, they have a cause and effect relationship. So what is the cause and what is the effect? That can be clearly defined. And lastly, we have the contingent. So what is this contingent? Something which is uncertain. Now these principles of management, they are contingent to the situation. So based on the situation, we have to decide about the principles of management. The next is we have the significance of principles of management. So why it is important to have these principles of management? First one is providing managers with useful insights into reality. So these principles of management, they give the managers useful insights into reality. What is the actual reality of the situation and how they should handle each situation? All these will be spelled out in the general guidelines or in the principles of management. So that is why it is important for the managers. Then the next one is optimum utilization of resources and effective administration. So these principles of management, they provide optimum utilization of resources. So whatever resources are available in the organization, they will be utilized to the maximum extent. So that is why it will help in optimal utilization of the resources. Then third one is scientific decisions. So the principles of management will help the managers in taking scientific decisions. Scientific decisions means, so the decisions based on the principles of management. So they are time tested and experimented and in practice. So that is why we say that they are scientific decisions. Then meeting changing environment requirements. So they help the managers to meet the changing requirements. So we know that principles of management are dynamic. So management is a dynamic function. So why do we call it as a dynamic function? So depending on the changing situation, management also has to change. So that is why it will help in keeping up with the changes in the business environment. Then fulfilling social responsibility. So the principles of management help in fulfilling the social responsibility of the business. So The social responsibility of the business involves giving back to society whatever they have received. So the business gets its resources, everything from the society, and the business has to give back whatever it has received. So that is why we say that they help in giving back or fulfilling the social responsibility. Then management, training, education and research. So these principles of management, based on these principles, we have various training institutes and various research centers which are constantly engaged in doing research in the various aspects of management. They are giving proper training to the personnel in order to be trained as managers. So these are the significance of principles of management. Then in this, we have to study about the Taylor scientific management. So Frederick Winslow Taylor is called as the father of scientific management. So he has laid down certain principles of scientific management. So what do we mean by scientific management? Let us understand the concept here. Scientific management refers to an important stream of one of the earlier schools of thought of management, referred to as the classical school. So now we have the two schools of management. One is the classical school, one is the modern school. So this is the classical school of management. Now the other two streams belonging to the classical school are the Fayol's administrative theory and Max Weber's bureaucracy. Now this scientific management, it comes under the classical school of management. Now, in this scientific management, we should understand that there is a scientific way of doing things. We have to see that there is one best way of doing things and see that the people do it in that best way only. So that is what we call it as the scientific management. Now, in this scientific management, there are certain principles which are laid down by Fayol. In this, the first one is science, not rule of thumb. Now, in this, we should understand that Fayol says that science is important. So, there will be one best way of doing any job. So, whatever is the job which is in the organization, there is only one best way of doing the job. It is the duty of the management to find out what is the best way, what is the scientific way of doing the job. And then there should be no room for any approximation. So whether you are doing whatever the job you are doing, find out the best way, scientific way, and see that the worker does the job in that particular way itself. So there should be no room for any approximation. Then the second important principle is harmony, not discord. Now, harmony between whom? The harmony between the labor and the management. Now, F.W. Taylor says that there should be a spirit of harmony between the employers and the employees. Until and unless the employers and the employees work hand in hand, there cannot be any benefit for both of them. Now, the employers need employees, employees also need employers. So, if there is any kind of a discord between them, the organization will not survive. So, we have to ensure that there is proper harmony between the employers and the employees. There should not be any disagreement between the management and the employees. Then the next one is cooperation, not individualism. So he also says that there should be proper cooperation between the individuals. That is, cooperation between the workers in the organization. So they have to work as one team and they have to cooperate with the management wherever possible. So in order to see that the organization runs well. Then development of each and every person to his or her greatest efficiency and prosperity. So whenever an employee enters an organization, so he will have his own aims and he will have his own objectives of doing the job. So we should ensure that his objectives are fulfilled, and when we fulfill his objectives, automatically the company's objectives get fulfilled. So each and every person should put in 100% efficiency and work for the betterment of the organization. So when the organization prospers, so the employee also will prosper in the same way. So in this way, we should ensure that each and every person will develop to his or her greatest efficiency and prosperity. Then, now, this F.W. Taylor, he has also introduced the techniques of scientific management. Now, let us understand what are the various techniques of scientific management which has been introduced by F.W. Taylor. So, in this, the first one is the functional foremanship. So, he has separated the planning from the doing function. Then, second one is standardization and simplification of work. Third one is method study. Fourth one is the motion study. Fifth one, time study, fatigue study, differential piece wage system. So these are the various techniques of scientific management which has been introduced by F.W. Taylor. Now let us see each of these techniques of scientific management. Now in this, the first one is the functional foremanship. Now, what is this functional foremanship? Taylor concentrated on improving the performance of this role in the factory. He advocated separation of planning and execution function. So, he said that there should be 8 people who will be working in the production house, 4 people for the planning function and 4 people for the execution function. So there is separation of planning and doing. So functional foremanship involves 8 foremen. So out of these 8 foremen, 4 for planning and 4 for execution. So under the planning in charge, 4 personnel will be, namely the instruction card clerk, route clerk, time and cost clerk, and the disciplinarian. They work here. So in the planning we have the instruction card clerk, route clerk, time and cost clerk, and the disciplinarian. And in the execution function we have the speed boss, we have the gang boss, we have the repair boss, and we have the inspector. So 4 personnel for planning, 4 personnel for execution. So it is an extension of the principle of division of work and specialization to the shop floor. So if you can see in this diagram, we have the functional foremanship. So we have the factory manager here, and we have the planning in charge and the production in charge. Now for the planning in charge, we have 4 persons here. One is the instruction card clerk, second one is the route clerk, time and cost clerk, and we have the disciplinarian. So there will be 4 people for planning in charge, and then for the production in charge, we have the speed boss, gang boss, repair boss, and the inspector. Now, what is the job of the instruction card clerk? So, he will decide what work has to be done by each worker. So, he will tell what is his work in the organization. The route clerk, so he will decide about the what kind of the route the process will take. Then the time and cost clerk, he will decide for the time for each unit of production, and the disciplinarian, he will take care of the entire discipline in the shop floor. Now, in the production in charge, we have the speed boss. So, he will decide the speed at which the machines have to be run. Then we have the gang boss. The gang boss will take care of all the other tools which are necessary in the production house. Then we have the repair boss. The repair boss will take care if there is any minor repairs to the machine. So, he will repair the machines for the job. And the last one is the inspector. So, once the output has come out of the machine, then there should be a person who will inspect the quality of the goods. So, inspector. So, all these comprise the functional foremanship of F.W. Taylor. Then, in the second technique, he calls for standardization and simplification of work. Now, what do we mean by standardization? It refers the process of setting standards for every business activity. So, whatever is the business activity, so you have to first set the standard first. So, that is the technique of F.W. Taylor. Then second one is it can be standardization of process, raw material, time, product, machinery, methods or working conditions. So when we mean by standardization, it means standardization of the process of raw materials, time, product, machinery and working conditions. And he also calls for simplification of work, reduce complexity to a manageable level. Simplification means try to keep the processes as simple as possible, and the product should be uniform in nature. There should not be any difference among any of the products. So if you can have this, so identify and remove the process defects and try to reduce any complexities. So this is the second technique of scientific management. So in this we have this: to reduce a given line or product to fixed type, sizes and characteristics. So how do you standardize and simplify the work? So you produce standard sizes of goods and type of goods with the same characteristics. Then second one is to establish interchangeability of manufactured parts and products. So we should establish there is the interchangeability of the manufactured parts and the products. To establish standards of excellence and quality in materials. So we should see that standards are set for the materials and also for excellence of quality of the output, and to establish standards of performance of men and machines. So we have to set standards for the men. So what is the standard unit of work they have to produce, and also for the machine? So what is the standard unit for each machine? Everything has to be thought about in advance. Then the next one important aspect is the method study. So in this method study, the first one is selection of work. So what is the kind of work each person will be doing? Second one is recording the information. So after selecting the type of work, record all the information relating to the work, examine the information, then develop new process, install new method, maintain new method. So this is the method study. So it is to find out one of the best way of doing the job. So with the help of method study, we will be able to know what is the best way of doing the job. Right from the procurement of raw materials till the final product is delivered, every activity is a part of a method study. So right from procurement, from purchase of raw material to the final product, so everything is a part of method study. So we have to minimize the cost of production, maximize the quality and satisfaction of the customer. So in the method study, we have to ensure that there is reduction in the cost of production and there is maximization of customer satisfaction. Technique like process charts, operation research, etc. are used. So in this method study, they will be making use of the process chart and the operations research. Then next we have the motion study. So what do we mean by motion study? Study of the various motions involved in each activity. So it may be bending, lifting, sitting, standing. So any position, whatever the worker is doing, so all those will be a part of motion study. So in this, we will have to see the motions which are productive. So what are the basic movements here and what are the eliminate the unnecessary movements. So you have to see that when the workers are working, so what are those movements which are productive, what are those movements which are not productive. So we have to see that. Next one is motions which are incidental. Example, going to the store. So there are certain motions. A worker has to go to the store to get some tools. So they are incidental. Then motions which are unproductive. So we have to see that the worker does not move his body in such a way that those motions which are unproductive. Through motion studies, he was able to design suitable equipment and tools to educate workers on their use. So with the help of motion study, Taylor implemented tools and equipments through which the worker could work more efficiently. Then the next we have the time study. So it determines the standard time to taken to perform a well-defined job. So you can see here the production house and you can see the time ticking here. So standard time should be fixed for each job in the organization. The measuring devices are used for each element of task. So for each task, you need to set the time frame. Only then you can make the best use of the resources. So the objective of time study is to determine the number of workers to be employed, frame suitable incentive schemes, and determine the labor cost. So why should we do time study? So the time study is done to see what is the number of workers we are employing. Second one is to have incentive schemes. So if the worker exceeds the standard output, then he should be properly rewarded. And also to determine the labor cost, we need to do the time study. The next one is the fatigue study. So the fatigue study means a person is bound to feel tired physically and mentally if she or she does not rest while working. So if this physically, the person will feel tired after working for a long period. So he is bound to feel tired. So what are the rest intervals we have to give so that he gets rejuvenated? So the rest intervals will help one to regain stamina and work again with the same capacity. What are the rest intervals each employee has to be given in order to see that he gets back his energy? It seeks to determine the amount and frequency of rest intervals in completing a task. Then the next one is the differential piece wage system. Now, in this differential piece wage system, workers can be classified as efficient or inefficient on the basis of the standards. So whatever the standards which have been set by the organization, on the basis of that, we can decide whether the workers are efficient or inefficient. So he introduced a different rate of wage payment for rather than quarreling over the share in the resultant surplus. So Taylor said that efficient workers should be properly rewarded, whereas inefficient workers should be paid a lower scale so that they improve their efficiency. So the workers should not quarrel for whatever the surplus the management is getting. So they should work in harmony for maximizing the output rather than restricting it. So they should see that whatever the work they are doing, they are giving maximum production, and when they give maximum production, they should be properly rewarded for their efforts. So the next important management thinker we come across in this chapter is Henry Fayol. So he is called as the father of general management, or he is also called as the father of modern management. So he was a mining engineer and he has propounded 14 principles of management which are relevant even today. So let us see what is this Henry Fayol's principles of management. So he explained what amounts to a manager's work and what principles should be followed in doing this work. So Henry Fayol he was just telling about what is the work to be done by the manager and how he should do the work. Then his contribution should be interpreted in terms of the impact that his writings had and continue to have improvement in management efficiencies, managerial efficiency. So even now these Fayol's principles are relevant even today. So we can just understand what is the thought behind writing each of these principles. Now, Henry Fayol's principles of management. So he said that all activities of the industrial undertaking can be divided into technical, commercial, financial, security, accounting, and managerial. So he first divided the entire activities into technical activity, commercial activity, financial activity, security activity, accounting, and managerial activity. Then he also decided about what are the qualities a manager should have. So he should possess physical, moral, education, knowledge, and experience. So what kind of physique he should have, what kind of moral values he should have, what kind of education he should have, what is the knowledge, and what is the experience. So in this, we will be studying about the first principle of Henry Fayol, that is division of work. So work is divided into small tasks or jobs. A trained specialist who is competent is required to perform each job. So Henry Fayol says that the work should be divided into small tasks or jobs, and each worker should be given the same job every day. So when he does the same job every day, he becomes more specialized in doing the work. The intent of division of work is to produce more and better work for the same effort. So for the same effort, better work has to be done, and specialization is the most efficient way to use human effort. So if the worker is specialized in doing the job, he will do it more efficiently. So he applies this principle to all kinds of work, technical as well as managerial. So we can see each worker has a specific task. So whatever he is specialized in, so only those jobs should be given to such workers. So when we give them the same job, he will become more and more specialized in that job. Now, the second principle of Henry Fayol is authority and responsibility. So if you can see, let us understand what is the meaning of the word authority. Authority is the right to give orders and obtain obedience, and responsibility is the corollary of authority. So authority means you are giving the right to give orders. So if you have the authority, so if you can see here, there is one boss here and he has the authority to give orders to all these people. So he can give orders to these two people and they will be giving orders to these three people, and we can see that there is a hierarchy of authority which is running within the organization. Now, in authority, we should say that authority is both formal and informal. Managers require authority commensurate with the responsibility. So, authority and responsibility should go hand in hand. So, if you have authority, you should have the responsibility also. So there should be balance between authority and responsibility. Authority and responsibility both should go hand in hand within the organization. Then the third principle of Henry Fayol is discipline. Discipline is the obedience to organizational rules and employment agreement which are necessary for the working of the organization. So, the respect and obedience for the rules of the organization. So, whatever the respect they have, whatever the rules of the organization are there, each and every employee has to follow the rules and regulations of the organization. So, only if they follow the rules, we can ensure discipline within the organization. So, discipline requires good superiors at all levels, clear and fair agreements, and judicious application of penalties. So, there should be good superiors at all levels. So, if you need to have discipline in the organization, there should be good superiors who will respect the rules of the organization, and there will be clear and fair agreements and judicious application of penalties. So, if any of the worker, if he breaks any of the rules and regulations of the organization, he should be imposed penalties. Only then people will be scared of breaking the rules and they will be more disciplined in the organization. Then the fourth one is unity of command. So there should be only one and only one for the principle of unity of command. So it states that each participant in a formal organization should receive orders and be responsible to only one superior. So if you can see here, there is unity of command. So he is on these, all the three people, they are listening to only one person here. So that is why we say that there is unity of command. So they should receive orders only from one person and they should be responsible only to one person in the organization. dual subordination should be avoided to prevent confusion regarding the task. Now, if there is one more person who is commanding them to go, then they will not know whom to listen, whether to listen to him or him. So, there will be utter confusion. So, to avoid all that, we need unity of command. Then, the next one is unity of direction. So, all the units of an organization should be moving towards the same objectives through coordinated and focused efforts. So, each department of the organization should have one departmental head who will direct all the employees of that department towards that accomplishment of that goal for that department. So, that is why we say that there should be unity of direction. So, each group of activities having the same objective must have one head, one plan. So, when we have one head, one plan, we can have unity of direction. This ensures unity of action and coordination. So, there is only one person here. So, he is the director and there are so many people working under him. So, he will direct all these people. So, when only one person, one plan, one head, then we can have unity of direction. Then, subordination of individual interest to general interest. The interest of an organization should take priority over the interest of any one individual employee. So, the interest of the organization is of utmost importance rather than the interest of any one individual of the employee. So, every worker has some individual interest for working in a company. The company has got its own objectives. So, we should ensure that the company interest, the worker should work for the interest of the company rather than his own interest. Then, next one is remuneration of employees. The overall pay and commission should be fair to both employees and the organization. So, they should be given fair wages which should guarantee a reasonable standard of living. So, at least whatever the wages is being paid, he should be paid reasonably well. So, only then he will be properly remunerated. At the same time, it should be within the paying capacity of the company. So, depending on the paying capacity of the company, we have to decide the remuneration for the employees, and the remuneration should be just, equitable, to ensure congenial atmosphere and good relations between workers and management. So, whatever is the pay packet you are giving, the pay scale, that should be just and equitable, and it should be in such a way that there is a good relation between the workers and the management. Then next we have the centralization and decentralization. So, the concentration of decision making authority is called as centralization. So, the head of the institution, he takes all the decisions by himself, so that we call it as centralization of power. And when he delegates some of his powers to his subordinates, then we call it as decentralization. The dispersal of the decision-making power among more than one person, we call it as decentralization. So, this is centralization. So, only one person takes all the decisions, whereas in this decentralization, so everybody have the power to take decisions. So, this is decentralization. So, the degree of centralization will depend on the circumstances in which the company is working. So, what kind of a company it is, then it will decide on the degree of centralization. In large organizations, we can find decentralization, but in smaller organizations, we have centralized authority. So, when we have a very huge organization where 20,000, 30,000 people are working, then it is always best to have decentralization. But if it is a small organization with around 100 people working, then a centralized authority will be best. The next, we have the scalar chain. An organization consists of superiors and subordinates. The formal lines of authority from the highest rank to the lowest rank is known as the scalar chain. So, we have the lines of authority A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So, we have this kind of a formal lines of authority from the highest to the lowest. So these lines of authority from the highest to the lowest are known as the scalar chain. So according to Henry Fayol, organization should have a chain of authority and communication that runs from the top to bottom and should be followed by the manager and the subordinates. So scalar chain is nothing but the chain of authority which runs from the topmost management to the lowest levels of management. So in case of emergencies, we can have a gangplank. So gangplank means communication between the employees of the same level. So you cannot wait for the communication to go from here to here. So in between, if you can communicate with the employees of the same level, so this can be done in emergencies. So in case of emergencies, a gangplank can be used. Then the next important principle is order. So according to Fayol, people and material should be in suitable places at the appropriate time for maximum efficiency. A place for everything and everything in its place. So that is what we mean by order. So you decide to fix a place for the tools, a place for the machinery, a place for the workers, and they should be there in that particular place to do the job. Only if they are there, we can ensure that there is maximum efficiency. A place for everything and everything in its place means orderliness. So if there is a fixed place of everything and it is present there, then there will be no hindrance in the activities of the business. So there should be a fixed place for everything and it should be there only when they are doing the work. Only then we can ensure that there will be no hindrance in the business. Then the next principle is equity. So here this principle emphasizes kindliness and justice in the behavior of manager towards the workers. It will ensure loyalty and devotion. So whatever the kindliness and justice, it should be there. It should be the same for all the employees in the organization. There should not be any partiality or breaking of rules for one employee or the other. So only then we can ensure that workers will be loyal towards the organization. There should be no discrimination against anyone on account of religion, language, caste, belief and nationality. So if you can see here, this is equality and this is equity. So you can see here, depending on the height, they are seeing the match. Here you can see that the tallest man is standing down and depending on the height, you have set the stools here so that all of them can see the match. So this, we should ensure that there is equity and equality in the organization. The next important principle is stability of personnel. Employee turnover should be minimized to maintain organizational efficiency. So employee turnover means you try to ensure all the employees who come into the organization, they stay in the organization for a very long period so that there is stability of working in the organization. Employees should be selected and appointed after rigorous procedure. Only when you do this, they will remain in the organization for a long period. They should have stability of tenure and should be given reasonable time to show the result. So you should also give them proper time to prove themselves. So that is stability of personnel. Then initiative. The workers should be encouraged to develop and carry out the plans for improvement. So if the workers have any plan for improvement, then it should be encouraged by the management. Initiating means taking the first step with self-motivation. So they should be, and if any job is given to any of the worker, so they should work with initiative. That is, take the first step with self-motivation, and it is thinking out and executing the plan. Initiative should be encouraged. It does not mean that going against the established practices of the company. So initiative means you are encourage him to do the job, but then whatever job he is doing, it should be as per the predetermined plans of the organization. Then lastly, we have the esprit de corps. So what is this? The management should promote team spirit of unity and harmony among the employees. There should be a spirit of harmony among the employees. They should replace I with we in all its conversations with workers to foster the team spirit. So he should not say, I have decided. So he should say, we have decided. We are planning to do this. So when he just replaces the I with the we, the workers will identify themselves with management and they feel happy that they are being invited to participate in the management decisions. So this gives rise to a spirit of mutual trust and belongingness among the team members. So they have to have mutual trust, and this will also minimize the need for using penalties. So when you just involve all the employees in the decision making function, so they will be feeling encouraged to be a part of the decision making process. So there will be greater cooperation, and in this way we can reduce the use of penalties within the organization. So these are the 14 principles of Henry Fayol which are relevant even today. Now let us have a comparison of the F.W. Taylor and Henry Fayol's principles of management. Now, for the basis of difference here, the first basis is the perspective. So, in what perspective these principles of management have been propounded? Now, Henry Fayol, he has focused on the top level management, that is the highest level of management, whereas F.W. Taylor, he has given more importance to the shop floor level of a factory, that is the operational management has been given more importance. Then second one, basis of difference, the unity of command. So unity of command means, so Henry Fayol is a staunch proponent. So he believes strongly that there should be a unity of command in the organization. But F.W. Taylor, he does not believe that unity of command is essential. We feel under functional foremanship, a worker receives 8 orders from 8 different specialists. So the unity of command is lost in F.W. Taylor's principles. Then applicability. So Henry Fayol's principles, they are applicable universally. Anywhere you go, you can make use of it. But this F.W. Taylor, it is used in specialized situations. Only when there is a production house, you can make use of F.W. Taylor's principles. Then basis of formation. So Henry Fayol, it is based on his personal experience, he has propounded the principles, whereas F.W. Taylor, it is based on observations and experimentation. So based on observation and experiment, he has come up with the principles. Then focus. So what is the focus here? Improving overall administration of the company. That is Henry Fayol. But in F.W. Taylor, he is focusing on the productivity. So how to increase the productivity of the organization? The personality, Henry Fayol was a practitioner, whereas F.W. Taylor was a scientist. Then basis of difference, so expression. So this and Henry Fayol, he is a general theory of administration he has propounded, whereas F.W. Taylor, so he has given us the scientific management. So with this, we come to the end of this session. You can expect 1 mark, 2 mark and 4 marks question from this chapter. And also you can expect one surefire question, that is based on the principles of Henry Fayol. Kindly go through the entire chapter so that you will be able to answer any question, whether it is the 1 mark, 2 mark, 4 mark or the 8 mark question. So be prepared. So especially Henry Fayol's principles, they are very important. So they may ask you this. So kindly be prepared for these questions on this chapter 2. Hope you have all followed it. Thank you.